You're over 60 now, and you're still holding on to too many things, aren't you? Not because you're lazy, not because you don't know how to clean, but because you don't know what to let go of first. A blouse your daughter gave you 10 years ago. A set of unused pots for when the grandkids come over for hot pot. A treadmill used for just 1 week. A wooden chair your late husband's. Each item, each thing, they're still there. And you, stuck between memories and guilt. Maybe you still tell yourself, I'll clean it up around the new year. What if guests drop by? There's still room and I'm still healthy. No need to rush. But there's one question that no one dares ask you honestly. If tomorrow you trip in the living room, would the things you're keeping save? You, Virginia, the 72-year-old woman I'm about to tell you about, I used to think the same. Until one unexpected fall made her realize what was hurting her wasn't her age. It was the things she couldn't let go of. That day, it was a cold winter afternoon. The snow in the yard hadn't melted. Virginia had just finished a load of laundry. She held it in her arms and walked up the stairs. The light was dim. A draft swept in through the window. She turned down the hallway like every other day, and then her foot caught on something. No time to react. She fell forward. A dry, heavy thud echoed through the silent house. An old stool covered with a blanket sat in the middle of the hallway. Virginia had left it there to sit on when putting on shoes. But for the past 2 years, she hadn't used it once. Her left hand was swollen. Her right hip was bruised. No bones were broken, she was lucky. But the real pain was somewhere else. Virginia sat there, on the cold wooden floor, holding her side. My heart clenched tight. For the first time in years, she looked around her home and no longer saw a warm nest. She saw a maze, a crowded space full of obstacles that used to be memories. Each item is no longer a companion. They had become gatekeepers, blocking her path, and maybe blocking the rest of her life. She had lived alone for more than 15 years. Her husband passed early. Her children had grown and moved far away. Virginia kept everything at first out of love, then out of habit, then out of fear, and eventually, she didn't even know why anymore. Things were everywhere. The living room, the hallway, the kitchen corner, the storage closet. She walked around them, squeezed through, got used to the narrowing paths over the years, until that day when she fell. Everything became clear. I didn't fall because I'm old, Virginia said. I fell because I've been living too long, surrounded by things I no longer need. I asked her, if your daughter came home tomorrow, would you let her walk through that hallway? Virginia fell silent, then whispered, oh, I'd be afraid she'd trip just like I did. That day, she made a promise to herself. She would no longer live among things that made her feel afraid. She didn't need to clean it all, didn't need perfection. But step by step she would reclaim her home and her life. And what about you? When was the last time you tripped over something in your own house? Do you still feel safe when you walk down your hallway each morning? If not, maybe it's time to look around with a new pair of eyes. Virginia didn't need a bigger house. She just needed fewer things inside the one she had. The fall didn't break her bones, but it broke her habit of keeping everything just in case. And from that very first drawer in the kitchen, Virginia discovered the first brutal rule most seniors unknowingly follow without even realizing it. Rule number 1, don't keep things just in case. Virginia started with a small drawer in the kitchen. She used to call it her junk drawer. It was just one drawer, just a test. But you know what? That drawer opened up a big truth. What was inside? Old batteries leaking acid, a roll of tape that had dried up, 3 ballpoint pens that wouldn't write, and 4 lighters, even though Virginia never smoked. She looked at them, then laughed, half embarrassed, half mocking herself. Just in case. You've said that too, haven't you? What if I need it someday? What if the grandkids come over? What if someone needs it? What if there's an occasion? What if this? What if that? What if forever? Virginia wasn't messy. In fact, she used to be an executive secretary, disciplined, organized, precise. So why was she now living in clutter? She said, because I'm afraid. Afraid of not having enough. Afraid of not being able to manage. Afraid of surprises. Afraid the grandkids might visit and she'd have nothing to offer. Afraid that one day she wouldn't be able to care for herself anymore. And at some point, the phrase "just in case" had become the excuse to keep everything. Not because she needed it, but because it made her feel like she was still in control. But in truth, Virginia wasn't in control anymore. Those just-in-case things had taken up space in her home and in her peace of mind. In the laundry room, Virginia also kept an entire shelf. On it, a fondue set still in its box, 2 sets of elegant glassware, a waffle maker gifted on her 65th birthday. She said I meant to use them, but I forgot. I asked her, if you were starting your life over today, would you buy that nut milk machine again? She paused, then slowly shook her head. I used to think it would help me live healthier, but really, it just reminded me of how I failed. We keep things not because we need them, but because we're afraid to face ourselves, that we no longer cook like we used to, no longer have visitors. We no longer host parties like we did when we were young, and deeper than all of that is the feeling of no longer being the center of anyone's life. Virginia started asking herself a new question. Does this serve me today? Not is it still usable? Not does it have value, but does it help me live well right now? After that question, she began decluttering, not all at once, just a little at a time. She filled 3 large boxes. A box of clothes she'd wear again when I lose weight. A box of plastic containers for leftovers. A box of glasses and dishes for the next party. They had sat untouched for over 10 years. No one used them. No one asked about them. No one remembered them. Virginia donated them. No guilt, no regret. She said I didn't throw them away. I just sent them where they're needed. Are you holding on to something like that? A dress you've never worn? A box of glasses still sealed? A juicer still in the packaging? Now's the time to ask yourself, if I were starting life over today, would I choose to keep this item? Don't keep things just to have them. Don't keep things just because you might need them. Because what you need most isn't more stuff. It's less of that stuck feeling. Virginia didn't throw anything away. She just sent those things to the place where they could be used and come back to life. The plastic containers, the unopened glass sets, the nut milk machine she once thought she'd use when she had more free time. The first 3 boxes were lighter than she imagined, because they weren't attached to anyone, to any emotion, to any story. But inside that house, there was still one box heavier than all the rest. It sat deep in the closet, covered in dust, silent, untouched for 17 years. Virginia hadn't forgotten it. She just never dared to open it, and the moment she did, she learned the second brutal decluttering rule. Rule number 2, memories don't live in boxes. Virginia had a box. It sat at the back of her closet, at the very bottom, covered in dust. She called it the past box. For 17 years, Virginia never opened it. She'd dust off the outside now and then slide it back like it was never there. I asked her, "What's inside, Virginia?" She hesitated, then looked into the distance, my husband's old baseball glove, our first concert ticket, a handwritten letter, and the last wool hat he ever wore. I didn't ask more, because I understood some things can't be touched with hands, only with the heart. That day, it rained. Virginia was organizing her closet when her eyes landed on the box. For the first time in years, she didn't look away. She took it down, placed it on the table, and lifted the lid. The baseball glove worn, but still shaped like his hand. Virginia touched it gently and burst into tears. He taught my son how to catch a ball, how to lose with grace, how to get back up after every stumble. Virginia whispered, like speaking to him, "I never forgot you. I just wasn't ready to look back." Then she looked at me and said, "I'm not holding on to this glove. I'm holding on to a piece of my life." I didn't say much, just offered her a small ritual. Take a photo, write a thank you note, and if she felt ready, pass it on. The next day, she did exactly that. She placed the glove on a wooden table in the morning light, took a picture, and wrote this line his hand held mine for 42 years. The same hand that taught my son how to play and how to be a man. I'll keep that feeling, no glove required. Then she called her grandson, a boy who had just joined his school's baseball team, and said, "Grandma has a gift for you. It once taught your father how to play. Now, it's your turn." Virginia didn't lose anything. She simply let go the right way. Not by throwing it out, but by transforming a memory into a living legacy. Do you have something like that? An old letter, a shirt someone once wore. A gift is still unopened because the person who gave it is no longer here. Are you holding on out of love or because you haven't dared to grieve? Virginia kept one letter, one photo, and a full heart. Everything else she packed gently and gave away. Each item with a handwritten thank you note. A few weeks later, she made a small journal called her memory album. Inside, a log of each special item she had let go. One photo and one note per page. And one blank page for anything else she might part with in the future. She told me I don't see memories as burdens anymore. I see them as old friends who've walked beside me, and now I wish them well on their journey. A question for you. Is there something you've never dared to open? A memory you've never dared to touch? If you opened it today, would you choose to hold on or say goodbye with gratitude? In the next part, I'll take you somewhere else. Not a place full of memories, but a place full of danger inside any home. A place that can take away your freedom with just one fall. Rule 3: the familiar corners are often the most dangerous. Virginia used to think that if she ever started decluttering, she should begin with the messiest spot. That is, until she fell. There was a small stool, one she had kept in the hallway for 5 years. It blended into the floor tiles. No one sat on it. No one noticed it. Until the night the power went out. Virginia was walking from the kitchen to the living room. Her flashlight flickered. She was holding a glass of water. One wrong step. One wooden edge in the dark. That fall didn't break a bone, but left her with a bruised hip and a sprained shoulder. 6 weeks of physical therapy. 3 months before she could climb stairs on her own again. Virginia said, "I didn't fall because I'm old. I fell because I believed my home was the safest place in the world." Have you ever felt that walking through your familiar house and suddenly realizing it's not as safe as you thought? After her fall, Virginia started seeing her home with new eyes, not judging whether it was pretty or neat, but asking, is it safe? She noticed things no one else did. A curled-up doormat at the front door, a slightly tilted bookshelf near a window, loose charging cords under the sofa, a plant pot at the base of the stairs, a hallway bulb that barely gave off light, each little thing, each small corner. When you live alone, those little things can become traps. Virginia told me about a friend who had broken her wrist tripping over a mini space heater in her bedroom. She said, "All I could think was if I fell like that." Who would even know, I asked her. If your granddaughter came to visit, would you let her run freely through the house? Virginia went quiet, then gently shook her head. Probably not. And if I can't let her feel safe, how can I let myself live freely? From that day on, she started decluttering to survive. Not to make things tidy, not to make things pretty. She called it the survival check. Each day she walked one path, with a flashlight, scanning close to the floor, every table edge, every cabinet leg, every rug corner, every outlet. She made small changes, removed the stool no one sat on, taped down the rug with non-slip adhesive, coiled charging cords with clips. She replaced the hallway bulb with a brighter one. Added a motion sensor nightlight in the bathroom. Nothing major. But every small change helped her feel at ease. I'm not afraid of aging. I'm just afraid that no one would know if I fell. When I heard that, I stayed silent for a long while. Because I knew it wasn't just Virginia's fear. It's a fear shared by many people after 60. Accidents don't come from carelessness. They come from familiarity. The corners we walk past every day but never truly inspect. Now it's your turn. Do you have a rug with curled up edges you haven't replaced? Is there a spot in your home you feel unsure about when walking past at night? Is there an item near a walkway you've never thought might be a hazard? Check it. Just one path from your bedroom to the front door, not to tidy up, but to help you live more safely. Virginia once said, "I don't need a beautiful house. I just need one, where I won't fall again." After her fall, Virginia began inspecting every corner of her home. Not to declutter, but to survive. And that's when she discovered something deeper. The most dangerous things aren't always the ones that trip your feet. Some hold you back by anchoring you to who you used to be. A box of documents, a fountain pen, a planner from 12 years ago. Virginia had never tripped over them. But every time she opened that closet and saw them, she felt like she was no longer herself. And that's when she learned the next brutal rule. Rule number 4. You are no longer the person you were 20 years ago. Virginia had a small drawer near the stairs. No clothes, no kitchen tools, just papers, notebooks, pens, and a small calculator. What stopped her was a stack of faded business cards. Each one is still printed with her name. Title: Senior Coordinating Assistant Company, Bartlett and Associates Office, number no longer in service. Virginia held one up. Her eyes glistened. "I was the first woman to join their leadership team," she said. "That feeling of being called on in a meeting. I miss that." That drawer was like a storage unit for her old identity. The old calculator, unused paper clips, a 2011 planner filled with meetings scribbled on every page. I asked, "Do you still use any of these?" Virginia shook her head. "No, but I can't bring myself to toss them, because if I lose these things, I'm afraid I'll lose the part of me that once did all those things. You understand, don't you? We don't just keep things. We keep old versions of ourselves." Virginia used to be a leader. Her calendar was packed. Her voice carried weight. Her business card once handed to others with both hands. What about now? She's still important, just in a different way. But to fully step into her new role, she had to let go of her old identity. Virginia laid each item out on the table. She didn't cry, just looked at them like greeting an old friend. She kept one business card, one fountain pen engraved with her name, and wrote a single line: "I was there. I lived fully. And now I will live forward in a different way." The rest she placed in a paper box, labeled it, "Job, well done, thank you." Now here's your question. What are you holding on to from an older version of yourself? A binder of files, a wall of certificates, a sewing machine you once meant to learn. Do you still need them, not for work, but to continue being you? Or are you holding them just so you don't have to face the fact that you've changed? There's a simple test called the Future Self Test. Hold the item and ask, will the version of me 5 years from now still use this? Does this still reflect who I am becoming? If not, then maybe it's time to thank it and let it go. Virginia said, "I'm not discarding the past. I'm simply choosing to live lighter so the rest of my life has room to unfold." In the next part, you'll see not everything in Virginia's house belonged to her. Some boxes in the attic had her children's names on them. Things she kept for them, thinking they'd come back for them someday. But it's been more than a decade and they never have. That brings us to rule number 5, don't hold on to other people's stuff if they don't want it. Virginia had an attic. Old wooden door, low ceiling, layers of dust. She called it the kids' floor. The kids were her 2 children. Now both are over 40. One lived in California. The other settled in Texas. What was in the attic? A few high school sports trophies, stuffed animals, boxes of old notebooks, CDs, journals, and a brown teddy bear with a torn ear. Virginia kept everything, every item, every box, carefully, untouched, unsorted. She said, "I kept them for the kids, in case they ever needed them." I asked, "How long has it been since either of them asked about these things?" She gave a sad smile. "Over 15 years, and that is the hardest truth to admit. We don't keep these things for our children. We keep them because we don't know how to let go of the role of the mother who always keeps things just in case." Virginia shared, "I used to imagine that one day my daughter would come back. She'd walk into this house and I'd open the box and say, 'Look, honey, I kept it for you.' But year after year, her daughter didn't come back and didn't ask." One afternoon, after a short video call, Virginia finally asked her, Do you want me to hold on to those old things of yours, the boxes in the attic?" Her daughter looked surprised. "Honestly, you can let them go. I don't even remember what's in them." Virginia nodded, smiled softly, ended the call, and quietly went upstairs. She opened each box. No tears, no drama, just a quiet stream of memories, spilling out. A pair of ballet flats her daughter used to wear, an A+ essay, a towel embroidered with the words "Best Mum Ever." Virginia kept just 3 things, placed them in a small box in case someday her daughter came home, so she could pass them on. The rest she repacked carefully and labeled the box "You were here, and you've grown." She took them to the recycling center with a light heart, not because she threw anything away, but because she had finally dared to stop carrying someone else's past for them. Now, a question for you. Are you keeping anything not for yourself but for someone else? Something your child left behind? A gift box you thought your grandchild might want? A suitcase someone said they'd come back for? If they haven't asked in 5, 10, even 15 years, then the real question is no longer, do they need it? But rather, am I holding on to this because I'm afraid to let go of being the keeper? Virginia used to think I'm keeping this because I love them, but later she admitted I kept it because I was afraid that if I let it go, I wouldn't matter anymore. You don't need to hold on to every object to hold on to your place in the family. You don't need to carry memories for those who are already moving on. In the next part, Virginia learns how to make a very small change that creates a surprisingly big impact. It doesn't start with a whole room. It doesn't take an entire day. It begins with just 15 minutes. Rule number 6. One small spot a day is how you go the distance. Virginia once tried decluttering the whole house in a single weekend. The result: back pain, sore arms, a sour mood, and most importantly, nothing changed. She told me I once forced myself to clean everything by Sunday. By the end, I was flat on my back for 3 days and didn't want to touch a thing for the next month. Then one day she came across a note in an old journal. Starting is the hardest part, but starting small is the only way. Virginia decided to try something new, 15 minutes a day. Just one spot, just one place. No more, no pressure, no rush. Day 1, she chose the drawer by the entryway. Inside, dead batteries, old keys bills from 10 years ago. She kept nothing except a single pair of working scissors. Total time 13 minutes. Total feeling lighter than the time she cleaned the entire living room. Day 2, her nightstand drawer. Day 3, the stack of papers in the kitchen. Day 4, the medicine cabinet. Day 5, the bottom drawer of the fridge. Little by little, 15 minutes stopped feeling like a chore. It became a ritual, like making tea, like going for a walk, like a gentle reminder I still get to choose, I still have the power to clear my own life. Virginia said I didn't see a big change after 1 week, but after 3 months I barely recognized my old house anymore. And what about you? Do you have 15 minutes today? Not to change your whole house, just to reclaim one small spot in your space and yourself. If you don't know where to start, pick the spot closest to you. The dining table, your purse, a drawer, a fridge shelf, a cardboard box in the middle of the floor. Don't pick the hardest spot. Pick the easiest one. Pick a spot with the least memories. A place where you can say, done in just 15 minutes. Decluttering isn't an event. It's a habit. A small act that gently reminds you I still can. Virginia taped a sheet of paper to her mirror. Every time she finished decluttering, She checked off a box. By the 4th month, the entire sheet was full. She looked at me and smiled. I haven't stuck with anything this long since I retired. You don't need motivation. You just need a timer and a small decision. 15 minutes a day. That's how you go the distance. Virginia didn't start with determination. She started with a kitchen timer. 15 minutes a day helped her reclaim her space and reclaim herself. But then, after a few months when the house had grown lighter, Virginia arrived at a very different corner. A place not on the house's floor plan, but deep inside her. A space filled with things that no one asked her to keep, but she still couldn't let go. A blank journal, a bag of unused yarn, an online course she signed up for but never took. These were things she had once promised herself, but never followed through. And Virginia started to realize decluttering isn't just about objects. It's about clearing out the guilt corners, the places where she'd blamed herself for too long. That brings us to Rule 7, forgive the things you never finished. Virginia had a box she labeled intentions. Inside, no old junk, but the remnants of things she once meant to do. An unopened knitting set, a beginner's Spanish workbook, a leather-bound journal beautifully blank, a half-written letter never sent. Virginia opened the box and sat in silence. For a long time. She said, I wanted to learn knitting. I bought the needles and the yarn, even bookmarked online tutorials. But I kept putting it off. Every time I looked at it again, I felt like I'd let myself down. Have you ever felt that way? Not because of anyone else, just a quiet ache inside. I once promised myself this, but I didn't follow through. In that guilt corner, Virginia held on to many things, not because of the money, but because of who she thought she might have become. A blank journal she had planned to write in after retiring. But 5 years later, the first page was still empty. A letter to her sister meant to apologize for a rift years ago, but she never finished it, and her sister passed away. I asked, if you let go of these things today, how would you see yourself? Virginia paused, then said I'd feel guilty, because I haven't lived the life I once imagined I would. That's a feeling many of us know, not from lack of time, but from postponing, from saying later. And now, each object is a quiet reminder of a promise we once broke with ourselves. I sat next to her and said no one fulfills every dream, and no one needs to carry every old intention just to prove they're a good person. Virginia exhaled, then took each item out. For the journal, she wrote the first line, "Thank you for once being my hope. Now I allow myself to close this gently." She kept only 2 items from the intentions box, the blank journal, and a fountain pen her daughter once gave her. The rest she donated to a local trade school. Young people need tools more than I need guilt, she said. I didn't give up on my dreams. I simply cleared away the old expectations so new desires have space to grow. Virginia, guilt doesn't move you forward. Only compassion for yourself makes you want to keep going. Now it's your turn. Do you have something like that? A guitar you never learned? Books you never read? A scrapbook you never started? What you owe yourself isn't completed. It's forgiveness. I did my best in that season of life, and now I'm allowed to set it down gently. In the final part of this journey, Virginia won't be decluttering anymore, because everything that needed to go has gone, and everything worth keeping has stayed. Virginia doesn't need another item to feel whole. She just needs to learn. To release the unfinished parts with gratitude, not shame. Not everyone learns to play the flute. Not everyone completes every course, but everyone deserves to live lighter after all they've already carried. And when the house is finally clear, what truly changes isn't the closet, isn't the attic, it's her. Virginia today is no longer the woman who held on to everything. She's ready to step into the final chapter of her journey, to live in a renewed space as a renewed self. That leads us to part 9, final rule: old house, new self. 2 days later, the 3-bedroom house once filled with papers, boxes, and old photos was now quiet. Not empty, peaceful. Virginia walked from room to room, her hand gently brushing the corners that had been cleared. No more photos on the walls, no more clutter in the cabinets. The kitchen now held only a kettle, a few bowls, and a small pot of herbs by the window. She didn't cry. She wasn't overwhelmed. She simply felt a space being filled with light, a space for what's new, for simplicity, for a different version of herself. Still Virginia, but no longer the one who carried everything on her shoulders. I asked her, "How do you feel now?" Virginia smiled as softly as a breeze, like I've been given my house back. But more importantly, like I've been given back the right to live life on my terms. That morning she opened the window. Sunlight poured across the bare floor. At the same time, birds flew past the eaves, and a thought arrived clear and gentle. Our home reflects our mind. When the house is clear, the heart opens too. Virginia began doing things she hadn't done in 3 years. Planting basil and shiso on the windowsill, folding her blankets hotel-style just to feel good, brewing tea each morning, then reading the paper on the porch, wearing an old dress just because she liked it. She said, "I don't feel lonely anymore. I feel present." Now here's your final question. If you cleared out your home, what's the first thing you'd want to bring back? A painting, a potted plant, a reading chair, or simply a new version of you who knows what she needs and believes she deserves that lightness? Virginia's old house didn't change its address, but the person living inside it was no longer the woman who held on to everything out of fear. Virginia said, "A house isn't for storing things. It's where you get to start over every time you feel tired. If you're in a place that feels too full, where every item seems to have a reason to stay, just remember this: you don't need to start big. You just need to start honestly." And if Virginia's journey helped you see yourself in it, leave me a comment below. Type 0 if you're starting from the mess. Type 1 if you're stepping into a new chapter and ready to reset yourself. I'm Frank from the Senior Life Reset channel. I'm not better than you. I've just been where you are. And what I've learned is this: it's never too late to live lighter. If you'd like more videos like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'm truly grateful that you were here. And remember, don't just declutter your house. Declutter what's keeping you from being you. See you in the next video.